Reluctantly.
I don't want to age anyone here, and I'm not great with math, but I think there is about 110 years of radio and television history in this episode. Lynda Steele and Gord Steinke are my guests today.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. Also, by Northern Alberta Heating, with work in and out of Edmonton and hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Email your resume to tim@northernheating.ca.
Reluctantly.
So nice to see you both.
It's great.
This is awesome.
It is great to see you two both. I don't know if I'm even close on the math, Gord. I know it was 30 years in Edmonton, but
that's right.
There was time before that, was there not?
Yeah, but don't ask me to do math. And I think Lynda would speak for herself too. I failed math terribly, but did well in English. But yeah, it was 10 years before that. So 40 years in broadcasting and add it all up. And yeah, I don't even, it just doesn't seem that long. Time has just flown by. It's just absolutely crazy. And here we are sitting now and semi-retired.
Lynda, how many years before you semi-retired?
Like how many years have I been in media before I retired? Semi-retired?
Yeah, radio, TV, because I know you've done both and whatever. I mean,
Yeah.
you were doing stuff before Global and ITV as well.
I was at CBC, CTV, Global, Czech, Chorus Entertainment, Czech out of Victoria. So it's been like getting very close to 40 years, which is kind of horrifying, really, because I think to myself, I'm not this age. You know what it's like? I mean, you look in the mirror and you think, who are you and where did Lynda go? You know, I had a fabulous career, and I feel like, Gord, you probably get this too. I caught the tail end of the comet when there was gobs of money, and anybody who had a license to operate a TV station was making, flatbed trucks full of money. It's different now. You had time to do documentaries, and there were investigative things going on, and now it's all just cookie cutter, one station producing news for everybody right across Canada. And then they go, how come nobody's watching anymore? It's because it's not really that local, and there's not really that much reason to watch a lot of the times.
Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of sort of mentoring young reporters and in TV and in radio. And it's interesting to see they're making those poor kids that are coming right out of J school do so much. They're shooting their own stories. They're editing it, and let alone setting everything up. So the burnout factor I'm worried about is really going to impact our business. Like Lynda, like you said, we were there in the heyday, the glory days of media, where we had time to work on features, and they'd send you out with a cameraman, then you'd come back and they would edit it and post-production. And now it's just, like you said, cookie cutter. And it is worrying to see the stress and the strain that's putting on, not to mention that's having an impact on the quality of journalism from what I've been able to sit back and watch. I'm still a news junkie, so I'm watching like a hawk what's going on.
But remember, I mean, back in the day, you'd get one assignment, you'd be out, do one story, and then you were done and you went home. Yeah. And now you have young journalists who are supposed to do a story, but cut something for 5. Maybe you do a live hit for the noon show.
Write something for the web.
Online. Make sure you send a clip to radio. It just goes on and on and on. And primarily the problem is that you got newsrooms that are full of a bunch of junior people, which is the best newsroom is people who have really young people who are super eager and keen to learn and have a room full of mentors.
Right.
And like some veterans who actually have been around the block a bunch of times. And that's the healthiest ecosystem in a newsroom. But now it's, generally speaking, a bunch of young people who are way overworked. And then they can make mistakes, and you make a mistake, and then the public goes, "Oh, it's all fake news. You guys are idiots," and it's just so difficult now.
Yeah, and there's not enough eyeballs on a script or something. That what I can see, what I'm learning when I'm talking to young journalism students who are working in the newsrooms. We had to get packages vetted out the yin yang before that ever went to air, and now it just seems like stuff's kind of getting put on there really quick without getting a lot of vetting done in not all outlets, but in some outlets. And because of social media and the internet, I find that the desire to get it first, get out there quick, really takes away from the credibility, from the checking, the fact checking that needs to be done. And that's hopefully coming back. The young journalists that I'm talking to, what I love about it on a positive note, they've got passion. They want to tell a good story, and they want to know, how do I stay objective? How do we get this side? How do we get that side? And that just warms my I mean, I'm flying the flag anyway. We need journalists, right? And we need good journalists. So they're out there. And I think things are turning around a bit. COVID scared the hell out of a lot of people, and they just didn't want to have anything to do with the media. But I think that's turning around. I'll be optimistic. And especially when you see what's happening south of the border, we need gatekeepers and watchdogs more than ever. Unfortunately, where are they?
Well, and here's the other thing. And, I know it's your podcast, Terry, but we'll get out of the way. We'll just talk about whatever we want to talk about. The thing that is really annoying to me now and disheartening is that people are so angry.
I
Oh my
know.
God, people are so pissed off.
Yeah.
And I was saying to Terry earlier, when you're in radio, it's like flying a rocket ship. You got monitors everywhere, and you're bored off behind glass, and you're doing phone calls and emails and texts, and there's playing audio over here, and there's just a billion screens going. And
Yeah.
you're in the midst of something, and you're talking, and all of a sudden an email floats in, and you see the thumbnail of it, and it's like, screw you, I hate your guts, you're going to be
Yeah.
fired. And you're like, and so anyway, let's go to Bob in Abbotsford, And
Yeah.
I think, who does that? I never did that. I
Well,
didn't
don't you
like
remember?
everything.
Yeah, Terry, you're probably the same way. You're dealing with callers on the radio show, but don't remember, Lynda, remember in the old days, Terry can do the math, but
100 years ago.
people would get pissed off when you wore the wrong kind of earrings, or
Oh,
I had a shitty tie on, right? And they didn't like it. That's what people complained about. Now they're complaining about, oh, you're just a hoax monger. You're spreading a bunch of COVID BS. And I get it at Rona. I used to get it at Rona at the plumbing. People follow me around the store and tell me what a bad job I was doing. And I said, can't we just go back to a simpler time when they just didn't like Lynda's earrings? Wouldn't that be better?
it wasn't just that. Because it was harder for people to reach out and, slap you
Yeah,
down, right?
true.
Because they had to actually get the phone book and look up
Right.
ITV or
Took
Global,
a
and
lot
they
of
would
work.
have to put some effort into sending a snail mail piece of trash that said they hated your guts. And you could always tell anyway, because it looked like a hostage note. When you looked at the handwriting, it was sort of like somebody looked a little bit kooky. And
Right.
there was a guy from Alberta Hospital who sent me a letter once a week, and he was, mentally ill, which is why he was in a forensic hospital. And he sent me copies of his driver's license, and I thought, well, at least I know what he looks like if he's out in the back parking
True.
lot. But,
Yeah.
now we're in an era where people can cyber slap you down with a tweet in 2 seconds. And I just don't understand the nastiness.
Yeah.
It
I don't get
doesn't
it.
make sense to me. I don't care if I tune in and I see some woman with a hairdo that I think that's not very flattering. I don't think, well, I must send her a
Yeah.
tweet to tell her she looks like hell. Like, who
Yeah.
does that?
Well, it's because politics has turned from they're not criticizing or even paying attention to the policies, really. They go after its identity politics. They go after the individual, and that's been happening in the last 10 years, and it's getting worse. And so it just seems like they get a hate on for one particular person, kind of forget about what the party stands for, and off they go. But
But the
anyway,
cruelty of it, because
I'm
during
just
COVID,
sitting here having a nice
right?
glass of water out of my old
Oh, are
ITV
you? There you go.
mug. Yeah. So,
I've got my CTV mug here from
oh,
back in
cool.
my Steele on Your Side days when I was the consumer investigator.
You know what I miss? And Terry, you're probably this way with all of the. We should let Terry talk, Lynda. But
I know, sorry.
I was, back in the day, we had such characters. Like when I moved here in '92, I came in from Minneapolis. I'd been working down there. I worked with colorful weathermen there. But I'll tell you, when I walked in the newsroom, the first guy that made me feel like welcome back to Canada was Bill Matheson, and
Yeah.
what a showman. And that kind of that's all disappeared. And we need guys like him. And I'll remember, like on a day like today, he'd be looking out here and be saying, "Gather your rosebuds while you may," because the weather's going to improve. The April's the cruelest month, and here comes it's a mother low.
Two things. I mean, Bill Matheson was the nicest guy in the world. I
Yeah,
mean, he would come in with his, tip-top suit, and his hair was often a funny color and what have you. But he was an original. He was a lovely man. He did a
yeah,
great job. People loved him. He had his
showman.
stick that he would bang on the floor. And what happened was people loved characters, you know,
Yeah.
Bill, Claire, or whatever. And then we got into an era where everybody had to look like Ken and Barbie. It's like all the women had to look a certain way and all the guys, and everybody started to get this sort of generic news people thing
Right.
going, where I thought, if we're all selling green widgets, why are you buying our green widgets? The whole point of people inviting you into their home, or they're watching the late news, they're in their underwear watching you on TV, it's intimate, and they want to feel like they know who you are. And
Yeah.
now it just feels so
Well,
generic that there's less and less reason to tune in.
totally. And that's why you and I had such a blast. I mean, we were treated like celebrities in this town. We did how many Grey Cups, how many Oilers events? Do you remember you and I? This would never happen now. They let us rappel up Skyreach Center onto the roof. Remember? I mean, that's a thrill. I mean, all the stuff we got to do, they'd never do that now. Going up in gliders, and they let me go up in stunt planes and shoot the story. And I spent 5 days in the Edmonton Max doing features, but
I
you're in the
learned how to drive an open wheel race car at the Indy for a week,
right,
sweating my
exactly.
butt off in like 37 degrees. Have you said anything yet, Terry? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, so how are you? It's great
Oh,
to see.
Terry's going like,
good
I
to
thought
see you.
this.
How are you doing?
He says, I think this is a good idea to get two guys who have been two people have been retired for a couple of yeah, they just want to talk.
Yeah,
Well, it sounds like you've had no one to talk to since you
I know.
left the industry.
It's no, I've been busy sharpening chainsaws and cutting down trees, so it's lonely,
Actually,
Terry.
Reluctantly.
this podcast is reluctantly sponsored by Northern Alberta Heating Limited, specializing in commercial HVAC all over the province of Alberta. Right now, they are urgently seeking motivated long-term employees that want to work for a great company. Are you an experienced sheet metal worker? Are you looking for a new outfit? A change for the better? Maybe the place you're at isn't the right fit for you. Well, send your resume to tim@northernheating.ca. They're looking for new people, first through fifth-year apprentices and younger journeymen. They have work both in and out of Edmonton, and they're offering hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Get your resume together and send it off today. Email tim@northernheating.ca to kickstart something new or a change for the better.
Reluctantly.
There was just going back about, 11 minutes now into the podcast. I was going to say, Lynda, where
Yes.
is this flatbed comic with all of the money in the broadcasting industry? Because I missed it.
Well, no, it wasn't money for the on-air people. Do you
Oh,
remember every time it was our time to sign our contracts? I remember
yeah.
back in ITV days, they were stupid. They had every single on-air person's contract expired the same day. Not that smart. And they were also cheap. Every time their contract came up, it was like, oh yeah, there's no money. And you thought, like, come on,
Yeah,
right?
Bill Matheson got
So,
all the money.
well, and he should have. However, they should throw a few shekels our way. So one time, Lorraine Mansbridge, God bless her, said, screw that. We're all going out for dinner and we're all going to have a discussion about what we're going to do because management's being cheap. And so I just started anchoring with you. And so she said, on Monday, none of us are going to work. And I was like, I'm not okay with that. I don't
Yeah.
think I can do that because I'll get fired. I really want this job. Um, Even Tommy Banks, is Tommy Banks still alive?
No, he passed away a few years
Okay.
ago. Yep.
He was doing media. He did some, what's the word for it? Acted like an agent for some people.
Right.
So
Yeah.
one time I went and had lunch with him to see if I would maybe hire him as an agent. And he listened to me and then he said to me, what's your line in the sand? What are you prepared to quit, walk away? And I said, I'm not. I love this job. And he said, can't represent you. So
Uh, Interesting.
yeah.
That's good advice for young up and coming people in broadcasting too. That part of it hasn't really changed that much. It's even tougher.
Really? They still pay crappy money. It
Yeah.
always seems like one person makes all the money. There was one guy who was working in Victoria in a way smaller market. And we found out he was making like six figures, making way more than we were. And we were all so mad. It was like, what? And the boss said, well, he's like a six-figure anchor. And was like, it's like
Yeah.
if they can get you in low, they'll just keep you down there low until you quit and
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. You didn't even want to know what the sales guys were making because they were rocking it through the roof. Sometimes I
Well,
thought I got in the
especially,
wrong business, but that's it. That
yeah.
was it. It was a ratings game back in the day, and the higher the ratings, and we might as well brag. We were number one for year after year in this market, and that means they could sell a lot of advertising. I think that's probably changed a little bit, but it's still a game. There's still lots of ads going on, and it's a salesman's game, and that's what we're doing.
The
I
funny
remember
thing was back in the day when there was CFRN and ITV, and it was this great death match for ratings, they had transmitters that ran all the way across northern Alberta. So they covered pretty much, I think, 90%
Yeah,
of the province. And ITV was up on satellite at the time, which was the only station, I think, in Canada
you could
that
get us
was
in
on the
Maui.
bird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, remember Bill Matheson got named Citizen of the Year or something in the
Me-
Bahamas or whatever. It was weird,
Weatherman of the year. Yeah, exactly. He was Weatherman of
right?
the year in Paris. Yeah,
Yeah. But the thing was, because we didn't cover the whole province, we would win the ratings in Edmonton by a landslide. But the extended market, we didn't, because most people in the province couldn't get us. And
right.
our boss at the time had done a handshake deal with the boss at CFRN saying, we won't do the city numbers for ratings. We'll just do the extended market. We're like, that's moronic. I
Yeah,
mean, we're an Edmonton news station and we are winning. Why don't
yeah,
we just say we're winning? To hell
yeah.
with your little handshake. But
No,
anyway,
it was all
it's still
give and
number
take.
one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you're talking about like the live satellites and stuff. That's the thing I got such a kick out of was how fast technology changed
Mm,
in our business. Like I remember when we'd go out with a Pine Lake tornado. We'd go. They sent me out to do a story from there. I had a little box. It was a satellite box, and Peter Wagalter or Vic Gobey. We had the
yeah.
best technical people that kept that thing together with binder, duct tape and binder twine, and we were on the air in no time. And the same thing, it just kept progressing, and it's just fascinating to watch the technology. Like the Fort McMurray wildfires, I was up there with cameraman Paul, and RCMP told us to get out of there when it first had happened. And Donna Friesen was there as well. We were all standing there together in the ditch, and we said, we better get out of here. The flames are coming over. We just packed up the camera and moved 20 miles down the road and just carried on. Didn't even miss our spot at 6 o'clock. That would have been impossible, like
Well,
in
wind
the
it
early
back to the
90s.
day where we had walkie-talkies at ITV. You had to go, CJZ 304 is Unit 4 listening. How stupid was
Wow.
that? And that
Yeah.
was during the Black Friday tornado. And I was on the Asana desk that day, and it was like storm clouds moving in. And we're like, oh, wow, the weather looks terrible. It was a long weekend. Everybody had filed their one storm and had gone
And gone
home.
home.
So I'm
Yeah.
sitting on the assignment desk waiting for my time to go. When the phone started ringing, I'm like, oh, there's a big hailstorm over here. And oh, something's happening in the south. And now something's happening over here. And was like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
And we didn't have computers. We
No
didn't
cell
have cell
phones.
phones. We had
Yeah.
no idea what the hell was going on. It was just a disaster. And we were doing a Co-Pro Live Eskimos game that night. So we didn't have a newscast at 6. And it
Right.
turned out was this huge, massive tornado that had killed a ton of
Right.
people. We didn't get out of there until midnight. And I remember walking out to the parking lot and everybody's drinking at the restaurant next door. And I thought, what is wrong with you people? Don't you realize that? I mean, how many people died in that? It was just
It's
it was
terrible.
the biggest
And
event of my news career at the time.
I was with you in spirit. I must have been because I was doing the 6 o'clock news, filling in at CBC Regina or News World, and I remember sitting at the desk. And old Len Dick was his name. He was the late night news guy. He came in with wire copy because he rip and read back then, and
Yeah.
that's what he did. He ripped it and sent it to me, and he was shaking as he handed it to me. And it was Edmonton's gone. I went, what? I'm not
Well,
saying that, but
I remember Hank Imes, who was our senior camera guy at the
yeah,
time, was the first person who was able to get back to the station with an old videotape. They had those giant tapes back in the day. And we were all
right,
standing there like, what's going on out there? Like there was calls coming in from all over the place. And we were standing in the edit bay and we popped in this tape and Hank was ashen. And I'd never
yeah.
seen him looking that rattled. And we
It
were
was
all
so
like,
big.
what?
Yeah,
He was at an industrial area in the south side with vehicles, semi trucks flipped upside down. We were just gobsmacked. Like
yeah,
nobody really knew what the hell that was. We didn't even know then that it was a tornado because
right.
you
And
had no access to technology, none.
yeah,
Then we
and
got to the era we all had those giant bones, the ones that were like big bricks. And
I've
you're
still
like,
got
I'm so
mine.
cool, I'm out
I
here.
kept mine's downstairs. I'll show it. I'll
Oh
show it
my
to you
God.
sometime. Yeah. I don't know if it
Yeah, that
works.
was
I'll have to
pretty
charge it
special.
up. I know, and I live out here in Strathcona County in Sherwood Park, and for 30 years I drove right past that tornado alley, and I always thought about that and the people that were affected by it, and how it took those big refinery uh, containers and turned them into like upside down, like little tuna fish
Yeah.
cans. It was crazy. And those are the stories you remember. I remember coming here and the horrible stories, like the ones with the Punky Gustafson, the little girl that
Yeah.
was murdered and her body was left over on 17th Street, and the whole city came together. Everybody was looking for this little girl, and it was the first time I ever remember seeing our station and CTV. Daphne Kuhn and I did a an hour special. We came together to try to generate clues for something like that. Can you imagine the media actually working together? I've never seen that happen before. We just threw out all the competition out the window, and they found her body. And unfortunately, it wasn't until years later they found the murderer confessed he was at Bowden. But those are the stories that, I think about them quite often, especially when you're driving around town and you know where these incidents happened, even though the city's grown so fast. Those are sort of the stories that made up our newsroom. And then the people behind those stories. We had remember the On the Road series that we did? We could never have done that. We couldn't do that today. And the people that worked behind the scenes when we went into communities like the Garrison or Spruce Grove or Mill Woods or out to Fort Saskatchewan, or they were big rock star productions, with a live studio audience, and there you go, and
And
we
we
had
could
the
do it because
crack
the
team.
station was making flatbed trucks full of money, Terry. Like shoveling millions of dollars into Dr. Allard's pocket. I
But
mean,
those
we
I
are
had
do,
the money to do those big shows.
now, how
I do,
lucky were we to be part of that?
Yeah.
I do remember seeing those. Because I watch. I mean, I've been watching Global News at 6 since it was just a half-hour package, and MASH came on
MASH
after.
came on, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean
Yeah.
that's how long it's been for me.
Reluctantly.
This podcast is reluctantly sponsored by the real estate team of homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Remax Professionals. If you are buying or selling in the Edmonton region, Shauna and Bonnie can handle everything with strong industry connections to mortgage brokers, home inspectors, lawyers, and contractors to support every step of the process. The market is very active right now. We recently listed our home again, and it went from MLS to closing conditions in 8 days. Now, of course, results may vary from property to property, but Shauna and Bonnie have been our trusted real estate advisors through buying and selling no less than 7 properties. I've recommended them to many friends who want real, relatable people with a personalized, hands-on approach. New home, investment, recreational, even commercial properties. Homegirls.ca is the website. Email info is right there. And the phone number is 780-517-HOME.
Reluctantly.
You two were talking about the tornado and then the Punky Gustafson, and then there's been so many other news stories. And being the people that bring people the news, there is a certain amount of, it's a lot of it is bad news. How does
Yeah.
how did you two handle that mentally from a PTSD kind of situation? Was it something that affected you deeply, or were you able to read it and then it was gone, or is there something in between? Where did it
I
go?
think for me anyway, I think that you have to act almost like a first responder. So if you were a paramedic and you got to the scene and there'd been a tragic car crash and a baby had died, and if you lost it because you just couldn't handle it, you're not doing your job. So in the moment, you're doing your job, even if you're stressed out and even if you're sad or freaked out or angry or whatever, you have to set that aside. But I do remember one time, do you remember the story of Brenda McClinigan? She was a young woman who had gone out for drinks with friends on the south side, was walking back out to her car, never seen again. They
Hmm.
found her car parked at a mall about a week later or what have you. And I
Right.
was at her parents' place where at the time they didn't know where she was. And so they were still doing interviews with the media, even though it was really awkward to be interviewing grieving parents who were desperate for information. So it was my turn, and they made me go sit in a back bedroom at the family home waiting to come out when they
Yeah.
got the phone call from the police that they'd found her car and she was missing. And the mother in particular started just wailing. And I'm sitting in the back bedroom like a interloper thinking, oh my God, they've completely forgotten that I'm here, obviously.
Yeah.
And I don't know what to do. So I sat there for a bit and finally I kind of opened the door and just said, excuse me. I said, I'll just go. And they said, no, stay. They wanted to do the interview. They're still hoping that they could get information or clues that could lead them to her alive.
Yeah.
And so my camera guy comes in and he's like, yo-de-do, setting up the lights. And I'm like, like, when are you going to make small talk with grieving parents? Let's go, right?
Yeah.
But I do remember doing a talk for some Edmonton police women and talked about some of the things we'd been through and whatever. And at the end of it, one of them came up to me and said, do you guys get any kind of formal debriefing, or do you have any kind of employee assistance thing? Because it occurred to me as I was listening to you, she said that you guys go to all the same stuff that we go to.
Yeah.
And they have access to that and we didn't. And I think
Yeah.
it's different now in the media. I do think that they're more
They
cognizant
have some guidance. Yeah.
trying to protect, the employees, but at the time, no.
I think you don't get hardened to it, but I know that I did bring it home a lot, and the bad stories I still think about, and I do talk to other reporters about this when I'm mentoring them. I remember one story at CBC. I was in Regina, and we got to a crime scene where a little girl had drowned before the police had. We just heard it on our radio, and I'll never forget walking in there, and the crowd the people in the pool turned on us because we didn't realize what was really happening. So you're right there, the parents are there, and you just feel terrible. It's a terrifying thing to be in the middle of a actual ongoing death like that when a drowning happens, especially with little kids. The one I remember the most, and it still impacts me, is the Mounties when they were killed out in Mayerthorpe. And I ended up interviewing and got pretty close to Brock Myral's parents out in Red Deer. And we've all got personal tragedy. I lost my sister to a drunk driver, and it wasn't that long ago when that had happened. And I really empathized with what they were going through. And I think that's why they talked to me pretty much exclusively, because I wasn't just trying to get a sensational report out of them. I understood what they were going through with the grieving process. But we all, everybody's like that. When anybody viewers watching, we've all had tragedy in our life. It's just a matter of, I guess, how you process it. And like Lynda said, it's sort of like you are a first responder when you're on this stuff. But I'll tell you, a lot of those stories, they'll be with me till the day I die, because you got to know the people and the characters that were involved and lost a family member, perhaps in a tragic way. And you can't help but internalize it and think about it. It's
And on the flip
life.
side, you have these moments and these stories you're talking about, Gord, that you'll never forget. Things like, for example, oh, darn it, somebody's phoning me, and I'm going to just turn that off. I one time was sent to, I can't remember what it was. It was a strip club in Edmonton. I don't remember even where it was anymore. It's funny how you move away and you're all of a sudden, I can't remember the streets. And it was a woman named Jane Jones who was traveling with a Siberian tiger. Do you remember this story?
I do.
And
This is ringing a bell. Yeah.
she made a ton of money with this giant tiger, which now seems insane that we would actually allow this to happen, right?
Right.
So I get there, my cameraman's bored. I said, stay there. I think she's staying in a Winnebago in the back parking lot of this strip bar. I said, I'll just go knock on the door and see if she's there. So he's sitting there smoking and whatever. And I go and I knock on the door, and the door opens, and a tiger's head. Like, and I'm talking a 400-pound Siberian tiger's head. And I'm like, whoa. And she's like a little tiny 95-pound stripper. And she's grabbing it by the leather collar going, whoa, back. She goes, just come on in. And I'm thinking, come on in. And I'm doing the math in my head. Am I going to get in a Winnebago with a Siberian tiger and a woman who there's no way could control this tiger?
Right.
And I think, I guess I am. So I get in and I'm sitting down, and this tiger, and she had snakes, giant boa constrictors, and birds and all kinds of shit.
All in the Winnebago?
In a Winnebago, an old Winnebago. So I'm thinking, this is ludicrous.
She must have been tiny.
And I pulled the old dusty curtains open, and my camera guy's out there in his van smoking. I'm like, come on in. So he gets out the back and he's opening the trunk and he's getting all his camera gear out and he's got his cigarette near her. And then she opens the door and I got to see his face, his reaction, which I'm sure what my face had looked like. Opens the door, tiger head, and Tom's like, wow. And she's like, come on in. And he's like, starts sweating. And he gets in and he's sitting down and he's trying to shoot. And the tiger's trying to get up on his lap and everything. And he is freaking out. And I'm thinking, this is absurd. We could have, I mean, I think maybe its claws were pulled out or something, but it was a tiger and it had teeth like this big. It could have
Right.
easily ripped your carotid artery out.
Boy,
But
and there's
anyway,
another,
so
there's
there's the
another,
flip side.
yeah, and there's another profession that's certainly changed. You don't see giant tigers and snakes anymore in the entertainment business like that. It's a good thing.
It is a good thing. Yeah.
I thought you were going to say you don't see strippers much anymore.
Actually, you don't. That's true.
She made $10,000 a week. And that was like in the, I don't know, 90s, early 90s, late 80s.
Early 90s,
I don't know.
yeah.
That's a lot of money. It's still a lot of money.
There's crazy things going on. I just remembered, I think Terry was involved in this. I did a bungee jump for charity. And so I thought it would be a good idea to wear all my
At West
leathers.
Edmonton Mall?
Yeah. And I wore my chaps and I had my, and they asked, how much do you weigh? And, I said, I think about 208 pounds or something like that.
And you wore your motorcycle helmet.
And the helmet. So they didn't add in that. So when it was time for me to jump off that stupid bungee platform at West Edmonton Mall, which is no one there, I went down, but I came up faster than I went down. And I actually hit my feet on the bottom of the platform. And it was just a shit show. I was scared of it. And my back still hurts from that. And that's like that's over 20 years ago. And I don't think they have the bungee jump anymore. But we used to do things like that and go, oh, sure, I'll go jump off of it. I'll do a bungee jump. Anyway, I think I got $5,000 for kids with cancer or something. And so that was good.
I got a concussion.
I did the horse race too.
Oh, right.
So remember
of
when
course.
Ralph Klein used to do the harness race at Northlands?
Totally.
And he finally gave it up. And so we thought,
I still have my helmet.
Yeah. I said, well, I was emceeing something for them. And I said, well, hey, like, what if me and Gord did it? And they were like,
oh, that was your
great.
idea.
Yes.
Okay. Oh,
so
okay.
I think I got back to the station and said, okay, I hope you don't mind, but I volunteered us to do this harness race. And it's like a legitimate professional harness race is racing their butts off around a track.
I still have my harness racing
scary.
license. I have the harness racing license still. Yeah.
Yeah. So we each got assigned a real driver and a horse and everything. And we had to go for multiple sessions to learn how to ride these things.
Yeah.
And I remember the night of, because it was for charity, the global helicopter was flying over top and it was recording the whole thing. My parents were living at Vancouver and they were watching the TV and they were jumping up and down because they were excited. But before we went, I had put Sambuca in a flask.
Oh, yes.
We were going to do a shot.
God love you.
Of courage before we got there. We were just about to do it when they said, oh, no, you have to go below the grandstand first and take a breathalyzer
test. You're like, oh,
it's a good thing we didn't drink yet. But we got out there, it must have been close to -30. It was really cold. Yeah. And off we went like a couple of idiots. It was scary. I mean, I actually thought I'm going to kill myself.
Well, and I've got size 12 boots and I'm 6'4". And one of the trainers said, doesn't look good. I couldn't get my feet in the stirrups. They had to actually push them in at the back so that when I was sitting, the horses aren't used to pulling that much weight or a long-legged person like that. But so I think I did pretty good. I mean, you won by a nose, but I thought
also you weigh a little bit more than me too. So it's kind of unfair.
And I felt so bad. I hope Pete is not listening, but I was beating that thing, coming around the corner. Come on, I know I can beat her. But no, I don't know. That was how exciting was that? And that was Ralph Klein. He kind of started. Listen to this. I got a picture here. See if you remember this one. I don't know if this is going to work. But speaking of Ralph Klein, I mean, and we were talking politics earlier, how things have changed. Well, this is a picture of you and me. And that's my motorcycle. We drove out to Red Deer to some event and Ralph's sitting on our bike and he just wanted to start it up. So I let him start it up and he went, I don't think I want to drive this anywhere. I think that's good. But
Smart thing.
just the fact that he wanted to, he was involved with us. And one minute we'd be hammering him over budget stuff, and the next minute I'd be flipping pancakes with him with George the Rock at that Klondike Days breakfast or something. And again, he'd be getting on the motorcycle. Now there was a character politician that really was sort of polarizing Alberta at the time, but he had such personality that it was. It seemed like we spent a lot of time with that guy.
Well, I remember doing a year ender with him and kind of walked slowly into it, let him talk about all the wonderful things he'd done that year. Because I had a
Yeah,
strategy. There had been other things he had done that were not wonderful. Like, do you remember he made his driver take him to a homeless shelter in the middle of the night? And he wanted to talk to them about why they didn't have
yeah,
a job. And he got into a fight with him and he threw a bunch of money at them.
yeah,
And
yeah. That wouldn't fly
anyway, so I
today
was
at
asking
all.
him about that, and I could see his whole body language, and he'd been having fun, and all his name was like really pissed off that I was
Yeah,
going to go there. And
yeah.
he's tried to fluff it off, and I kept going there softly. And well, what were you thinking? And whatever. Was that goddamn Graham Thompson from the Edmonton Journal? Somebody had tipped off Graham, and then it had become a story. But his eyes, I remember in that moment, he was
He was
so mad
scary.
at me
Yeah,
that his eyes, he had blue eyes, and it was almost like he was high. They had gone into little
yeah.
pinpricks and they were just sparkling. And I could see the thought bubble around his head was, am I going to leave? And he was that close to just taking his mic and throwing it off,
And leaving, and he
but
would
he
have.
decided to stay.
Yeah. No, I remember whenever I brought up Nancy Betkowski, I think she was a Liberal leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, his eye, he would just, it was, we weren't having fun anymore if I even mentioned her name. That was like, I had to introduce him a couple of times at like Hall D. And I just remember one time he goes, is she out there? And I went, oh yeah, she's out there. And he said something not very kind. And then he walks out, then a big grin on, hello, everybody. You know, and it's like, oh my gosh, politics was
Well,
getting nasty at that point.
and after the throwing the money thing, he had to come out and have a news conference like on the Monday and said he
Yeah,
had a drinking problem. He was going to quit drinking. That was, then everything was going to be fine. But he didn't stop drinking. And we used to go to a restaurant that Klein went to occasionally. And
yeah.
the owner named Nello, do you remember Nello? He had a little
Oh, for sure.
twirly Italian
Yep.
mustache. And he was like, yes,
Great guy.
he thought it's bullshit that he can't drink. And so whenever Klein came in, he would pour liquor into his coffee cup and serve it to him. And I was like, Nello, the guy said he's got a drinking problem. He's not drinking. He's, oh, that's bullshit.
Right.
So
And
Klein
then,
would just sit there and drink his cup of liquor. I
no,
just thought, this is only in Alberta.
yeah, well, I also thought the only in Alberta was how many elections did we did? I have no idea. I lost count. But the one,
Gazillion. Yeah.
yeah, the one of those gazillion elections we did, Ralph Klein, we thought it was be fun to get him on the desk to sort of
Yeah.
be an analyst, right?
Yeah.
And so
It was the first year he'd stepped out. He wasn't running anymore.
yeah, so he's sitting beside us, and he's we thought it'd be a great idea, but he got so wrapped up in the whole thing that I think some boards went by, the riding boards or something. He went, "Holy shit,
Rapids.
look at that!" And I had to actually say, "Mr. Klein, this is a family show. This is a family election. We can't use language like that." And I can't believe I'm kind of chastising the premier and bringing him down. But he went, "Oh, I'm sorry, Gord." And then it
But the
was,
funny thing about that was that we were all sitting around going, who should we have for, celebrity analyst this year?
yeah,
And I said, well, I know it's kind of weird, but what if we asked Klein? He's
yeah,
a colorful guy. He had just stepped out of politics. And we're like, do you think he will? Anyway, we asked him. He agreed to do it. So we were promoting it. They had put, these promos together. And there was this viewer who was really incensed about it. How dare you have Ralph Klein? This is an outrage and whatever. And so
yeah,
she was reaching out to Neil, our news director at the time, just scathing emails about what an outrage, and I'm never going to watch ITV again. I don't know if we were ITV or Global or whatever.
yeah,
And so this went on, and he was writer back, and this is why we're doing it, and thank you very much. And da, da, da. We have several analysts. He's just one of them. And she just kept coming at him. And I think it was like she came back fifth time, and Neil
wow,
was looping us into what with her
yeah,
response.
yeah,
So off she went again, and I thought, this is crazy. So I replied to our group, oh, I bet you old crazy Nancy's going to watch the show anyway. Boom. And then I went, her name was, he had embedded her email into all of our emails. It was like,
Oh,
what are you doing? Soon
oh
as
my
I saw it,
God.
I was like, oh no, and I tried to claw it back, but you
Right.
can only do it if you're on the same server. And so I couldn't, and I was like, oh crap. So I went into Neil's office and said, I'm sorry, but I did this. And basically, why did you embed her email into all of our emails? So
Yeah.
she was really mad, and she replied back that Lynda Steele should be fired and all the rest of
Yeah.
it. It's like
Oh, there was so much,
a pretty
controversy, but
watch, crazy
but
Nancy.
it sure wasn't as easy to get in touch with newsrooms and voice their opinions as it is now. They're just feel sorry for them. They're just getting bombarded with X or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever it is. You can't
Yeah.
get away from it. I mean, I've really stepped back from all the social media just because people still feel that it's very important that they send me the most recent conspiracy theories on Kuliev or Carney and stuff. And it's just like, I'm not even going to click on this because it'll probably shut my phone down, as we saw at the beginning of this podcast. That's probably the problem. But it's sure been a lot of fun. And I mean, there are great memories, and it's just that you just hope for the best for the young journalists that are out there now, and that they can somehow get a sense of the glory days. I mean, I know there's not going to be any more ski teams and giving out vehicles and stuff. Like, we had so much fun, and it was just such an interesting time.
Yeah.
When a news team splits up or retires or is let go or moves on to another career opportunity, for a lot of the listeners or viewers, it ends up being part of the family is gone.
Yeah, it is.
And I would imagine it's the same way for the two of you. Lynda, you you made your way away from ITV/Global, and but I mean, the other thing too is the dynamic of the TV husband and wife really
Oh yeah.
wigs me out. It must be weird for your respective spouses.
Well,
Yeah, but we used to
they were
get
used to
together.
it.
Yeah, and we got together with our respective spouses quite a bit. I'd have garage parties at my place, and you and Norm would be there. And I remember Ron Rimmer and Cam Tate and Rick and Deb, our good friends,
Yeah.
they would have been there. So we did socialize all together, but we were connected at the hip for
Well,
15 years.
my my nephew was really little at the time, and one night my sister-in-law said, oh, and Linda and Norm, which is my husband, we're coming over for dinner on Friday. And he said no, Linda and her husband or whatever are coming over.
Yeah.
And he said, oh, he said Gord's coming over. And she said, no. Auntie Linda's married to Uncle Norm. And he said, does Gord know?
I love that story.
Right? Just because
That's
people,
funny.
you're in the living room and you're seated together. But I don't know how many times when you're at Safeway getting your groceries and somebody would say, do you guys really like each other, or is
No,
that an act?
constantly.
It was
Yeah,
like, you know what? I am not Meryl Streep. And over many, 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 many years, what you see is what you get. And that's what it is. And we were just lucky that our team had really good chemistry,
yeah,
because you can't manufacture that. In fact, the chemistry can either be delicious or it can explode in your face. And
yeah.
we were lucky because right from the get-go, we were peas in a pod.
Well, we think the same way. I don't know. We had similar backgrounds. I was born in North Battleford, grew up in Saskatoon. You were familiar with Hinton and areas, and I don't know. It just seemed like we were same music tastes and all that stuff. So all that kind of stuff, it really does. It really does help. You can't make it up. And then I remember, yeah, you can't just pretend that you're doing it. I remember hanging out with Darren Dutishan and Perry Solkowski and Bruce Buchanan and Mike English. And we just had a great time. We'd be throwing around footballs in the newsroom and getting into trouble after work on golf course charity
Getting
events.
into trouble on the air because
Getting into
people
trouble
were
on
just,
here.
I don't know how many times something would happen that was just so hilarious that it would just be
Couldn't
absolutely
stop.
snorting with laughter, head down
Yeah,
on the desk during the newscast. When I'm going to laugh, I find it really hard to keep going. You were the master of that. You would always get out. Do you remember the chubby bunny
oh
thing?
my
They
God.
put
Yeah.
the peeps
Oh
in your
my.
mouth. They keep putting a peep in until you can't say chubby bunny anymore. There was just
Yeah.
something that was so amusing about that. I think the guy, it was terrible. I think the guy choked to death was the
Right,
reason it was on
think
the
he did
news.
too. But I was hitting myself in the leg with my pen. That's how I was able to keep it together and get us to a commercial break. I was physically harming myself so that somebody could do it. I didn't want Tim Spellacy the next day firing us both or getting marched in. See me on this, and
Yeah.
then we'd be in trouble there from the station
Brought a
manager. But
surprise gift for you one time. I think it was for Halloween. And I had it tucked down at the bottom of my desk or, by my chair on the anchor thing. And so I was going to get it to surprise you. So I went to bend down to get it, but it looked like my head went straight into your lap.
oh,
And
right,
I
that was
remember
good. Yeah, that got a few emails.
just
Yeah,
ridiculous stuff.
yeah. People were
We had to
wondering where
work
you
a
went. Yeah,
Y2K because the whole world was going to end. So we had to
yeah,
work until midnight on
yeah,
Y2K. So everybody had a drink. Everyone had a cocktail under the anchor desk. And
yeah,
guess what? We're all still alive. So
yeah.
we've been through a
That's
lot.
true. We used to get a lot of stuff. I don't know if you can see this. If I get up, I don't know if this will work. But remember this bear? Can you see the bear?
Oh
Oh,
yeah,
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 I
yeah.
can
You
see it.
still have that.
I still have that, and thanks to
Wow.
you. But
It's a
yeah,
bear rug.
you ended up outbidding me at that. That's your bear. You got it for one of those movie auctions.
Yeah,
Remember?
there was the big movies soundstage right next to ITV. They
Right.
shot something in there, some cabiny kind of a
Yeah.
drama, and
Yeah.
they
I
were
got a
selling all the props.
right. You got the bear, and I got like a sock from Ginger Snaps or something. So
Right. A sock.
you took pity on me when you left, and I said that'll fit perfect in my
Yeah, I'm
library
glad
here.
you still
So
have it.
still have it. Yeah.
Do you still have the sock?
The sock is long gone. Yeah. No.
What is this sock from Ginger
You
Snaps?
know, it was a wardrobe sale, so I think there was a
And you
sock
just
and a
got one
jacket.
sock?
Well, there's one sock in a pocket of a leather jacket, which I do still have, that
Okay, there you
somebody
go.
wore in that. So lots of fun.
Oh man. So I was together like with the TV husband and wife sort of thing that there's always that reference to when there's a man and a woman on the anchor desk. It made me think while you guys were talking about that, Lynda, obviously you were there and then you left. So there was Gord, run through when you first came to
Oh man.
ITV and run through all of the women that sat beside you as co-anchors.
Boy, that's put me on the spot.
I can help you.
Yes, I know there was Luann Fraser with just a little bit. I think a month. I moved in January '92. So I'll go with Leslie McDonald for sure. I think we anchored the 6 o'clock in that little studio before MASH for about 3 years. By the way, I'll just stop there. Do you remember, if you were watching, do you remember Elliot Gould and Barbara Streisand's son helped Bill Matheson with the weather one night? He was over at Mayfield Dinner Theater and on that show. But anyway, I just thought that's so weird. I'm reading the news in that little tiny studio before we moved into the big airport hangar style one. And not 4 feet from me, Elliot Gould is standing there and getting ready to go on and help Bill Matheson. These are weird things you remember. Anyway, there's Leslie McDonald, Jacqueline Clark,
Mm-hmm.
and then it was Lynda for 15 years, at least 15 years.
17.
17? Okay. And then Carol Ann, of course. And then and Carol Ann was a great team leader as we came in there. But then I also had Quinn Oler, Nancy Carlson, and they would fill in while Carol Ann was off having babies.
I mean,
So there's quite a few there. I had
actually,
one. Yeah.
That's a really good thing to bring up too. What is with the chairs at Global Television? It seems like they all have babies all at the same time. All of the female anchors and reporters and stuff. I know they're all very tight, very close knit bunch over there and good friends.
It's the
But
water.
it seems like they all have babies all at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, they did. That's so true. And so that's why I worked 17 years with Lynda, the longest. We didn't really take a break. We couldn't even work stat holidays. We were always together doing everything you could do. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was quite a family. And now all those kids are in their 20s and yeah, complaining about it like everybody else is about stuff. Yeah.
Do
It's just
you
life
have this?
marches on.
Do you have the same amount of notches in your pencil
Anchor.
for your anchor pencil for men that you've worked with side by side on the anchor desk, Lynda?
Not really, no, because I came from an era where nobody wanted to be an anchor, which is shocking, right? So it used to be the height of arrogance if you wanted to even do a stand up and appear on camera because you were
Yep.
not the story. The story was the story. So I started my first full time job at ITV as the weekend anchor, and I just begged them to let me get off of it so I could be a reporter. So a lot of my career was reporting. And when I first started anchoring was with Gord. And then when I moved to Vancouver, I went back into reporting again and then radio from there. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I filled in with the odd person here and there, but it was mostly Gord.
Well, you went from TV to radio. Gord, did you ever consider it? I know Daryl McIntyre from CTV, who's a good buddy. He went from TV into radio for a bit.
Yep.
I still remember when I was hosting Funniest Person with a Day Job at the comic strip, and Daryl McIntyre would always come after and be one of the celebrity judges. So he would sit there, and oftentimes Carol Ann Devaney was also one of the judges.
Yeah.
So Daryl would come over, and we'd start doing things. And after things were done, I would, finish at 9:30, quarter to 10, or whatever it was. And Rick and Daryl would say, "Well, let's have a scotch," and I say, "No, I gotta go." And Daryl would always, "You're such a pussy. What do you have to go for?" I said, "I get up in the middle of the night to go to work."
Yeah.
Well, funny enough, all of a sudden everything happens at CTV. Daryl's out of a job, and he all of a sudden starts doing the morning show at Chad. And
Early
then,
morning.
yeah, about 7 months later, I met up with him at an event, and he goes, "I just want to say I'm really sorry for the way I treated you."
That's funny.
Did you ever think about doing any radio stuff?
I thought I'd never leave. I started out actually in print journalism. I was a reporter at the Regina Leader Post, and I did. I was a photographer, and then I got into CBC radio. So I really my career started in radio, and I never thought I'd leave. I worked on one of those afternoon editions as a researcher writer, and then I moved into a host position, and I just loved it. I just didn't think that I would ever leave radio. I loved everything about it. I loved doing documentaries in radio. I loved the splicing with the razor blade and the blue tape and taking breaths out. And that's some of my fondest memories. And then what happened is one of the suits from upstairs from TV came down, and he goes, "Geez, we think you have a good voice and a look. If you cut your hair, would you consider moving into television?" And I said, "Not a chance." I said, "It just seems so superficial." I had a real attitude then because I was loving the long format of these CBC things, documentaries. And I said, "No, I'm not interested. Your clips are like 30 seconds long. Now they're 10 seconds long." But I said, "They're 30. You have to tell the story in a minute 30. I didn't know how you did it. And I don't know anything about television. And I don't even know how to tie a tie." So he goes, "Well, I'm sorry, your radio job is kind of ending." So I said, "Okay, when do I start?" And the next minute I was upstairs in television in Regina at CBC. And then I had a wonderful bunch there, and I realized how powerful TV was, and I loved the teamwork. Whereas in radio, you're more a one-man band. This was, I got to love that too. So then same thing happened to me, Lynda. I didn't want to be an anchor at all. It just I didn't want to do it. And they basically said, "Well, this position's ending unless you want to go into arts and entertainment or something." And I was doing midday at the time, and I wasn't enjoying that because it was so hit and miss. I said, "When do I start?" And the next thing I knew, I'm on the anchor desk. And then I was working down in 2 years later, I got called in to do an all news channel on an ABC affiliate in Minneapolis. And then I got to do both, though, there anchoring and reporting, and the same here. So I loved radio, but I'm retired now. I think
You don't give a shit one way or the other.
I really don't. No, it's a lot of work. I know what you guys go through, even, for those morning shows, the prep time you guys put in is just admirable. And as soon as, like with Lynda and I, as soon as that 6 o'clock show and we say goodnight, you're working on the next one right away. I mean, yeah, there's no time to say, "Hey, great show. That was really good." Put that on the reel.
Well, and then there was the other thing too. You remember in 1999, I started up Friday Night with Terry Evans, the TV show. So that was I started in radio in 1980,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden in 1999, I'm doing a TV show for Shaw.
I was
And
on that. I remember that. That was
yes, you
fun.
were.
You started
And
in 1980.
I started in radio in 1980. Yeah.
What were
So
you,
let me do the
12?
math. You must be, yeah, you must be like 29 or something right now. I mean, good Lord, you must have been barely even, you probably couldn't even legally buy a drink in Alberta then.
No, I could. I started in Creston, BC, in my hometown. I was in grade 10. I had just turned 15.
Hmm.
Wow. Good for you.
So, yeah,
And never
thanks.
looked back.
Well, no, not
That,
really. I mean,
So how many years have you got in?
well, it's 2025, so 45 years.
wow.
45
You
years, and
look
then
exactly the same as when I left Edmonton 14 years ago. So
well, well, you guys all look great too. You look exactly the same. I was
George hair
going
is a
through the
little grayer or whiter, but he looks exactly the same.
Yeah,
yeah,
less. There's less of it, and it's whiter, but it's okay.
You
but
have
I
less
was
hair. You look like you got a good lid going there.
Yeah, it's all in the combing. It's going
it's
well.
it's all in his motorcycle helmet.
Yeah,
Uh, I Google. Have you guys ever Googled yourselves?
I did once, and I'll never do that again.
Because I Googled and just seeing images and news and videos and stuff like that, and going back and looking at some of the old footage and so on. And when you both popped on to have our chat today, I thought, well, they look exactly the same as they did before.
Oh, that's
And
nice to hear. Good.
yeah, so it's great.
Special
Well,
filter.
yeah,
Yeah.
I feel a lot stressed. I mean, the best thing that I found when I quit doing what I was doing here for 30 years was I could actually sit down and have dinner with Deb at 5 or 6 o'clock and go to a concert because our lives were just like you didn't get out of there till 7:30 and then your night's shot. So this has really been. We're still enjoying that. Well,
Did-
a lot
I
of
would
freedom.
imagine. And Lynda, you say you're semi-retirement? Are you is Steel Talk, or are you
Yeah.
still doing
Well,
stuff?
my husband is the chief of the Surrey Police Service, which is a brand new municipal police department that he's been building from the ground up. So he's been pretty busy for the last 4 years, and he kind of works 7 days a week. So I stopped working after CKNW and I did a radio stint after the pandemic and I was burned out. And it took, I don't know, like about 6 months off. And I was deliriously happy for the first 6 months. And then after that, when the rain started to fall again here in Vancouver, I started to slide into a what the hell am I going to do now? It was just like this morass of, time and nobody to do stuff with specifically. So I thought, okay, clearly I'm going to have to do something, cobble together something in my life to keep me busy until he's wrapped up his career. So I'm doing media training and I've done a couple of things here and there. I've been doing a little bit of emceeing. I voiced an audiobook. Um,
Oh, fun.
so,
That you're keeping
just
busy too. Yeah.
things here and there. I did a show for a couple of years, a current affairs TV show that was province wide. So I've been doing stuff, but I don't want to work full time. I enjoy not, blowing your brains out every day. But I do like the podcast thing is fun, but as you know, it's challenging. It's hard to monetize. And so I kind of am still looking around to see what I'm doing.
Yeah, it's nice to have that option. I felt the same way. I've been busy with emceeing and things, but I just got to give a plug if I could. I'm doing a thing with Peter Mansbridge. I'm moderating a talk, just him and I at Meyer Horowitz Theater that's coming up, and the
Cool.
tickets go on sale. Yeah, it's at Horowitz Theater, which I haven't done anything on that stage before, but it's going to be a lot of fun. And Mansbridge, with all, he's going to have some great insight into what's going on politically, and it's changing day to day, so you can't really prepare anything. So that's going to be fun, and we'll be taking questions from the audience, and tickets go on sale for that. That's through the Edmonton Public Library. That's in July, so keep
That'll
your
be
eye on
fun.
that. Yeah, and I narrated a film too, which is at Grindstone, and that's coming up, a sneak preview on May 7th at Grindstone, I think it is. And it's a comedy murder mystery, and it was a different stretch for me to narrate something like that. It was fun.
That's cool. That Peter Mansbridge's character, I hope he does well in his career. He's
I
got some
hope so.
potential.
Well, I thought he's got potential. I know that he was last, what was he doing in up in Cumberland House, was it, or somewhere, or he was an announcer for airlines. I think he'll do okay. I think that's how he
Now
was
he's doing
discovered.
reverse mortgages, isn't he?
Yeah, right. There's that too. See, so, and then I'm doing the Ride for Dad coming up. That's a big one. I don't know if you're involved with that. I know Todd James will be with me on that,
Yeah.
and the No Stone Alone keeps going on, and yeah, all that stuff. Salvation Army stuff is good, so it keeps you busy. And
Oh, James looks like the guy from ZZ Top now. I mean,
Yes, he
good
does.
Lord, his beard's like about that long now, right?
Oh,
nobody
it's longer
recognizes
than
him.
that.
It is. It is long. Yeah, it's as long as
Nobody
Donald.
Really?
It's as long
nobody
as Donald
recognizes
Trump's
him.
tie.
Nobody recognizes him, and he likes it that way.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Odd.
people do an event. People go, "Who is that guy? He sounds familiar." I go, "That's Todd James."
Yeah.
So,
Hiding behind all that hair.
Yeah,
yeah,
Gord, you've done books in the past with the prohibition and other things.
mobsters and stuff.
Yeah.
Yep,
What have you got? Anything else on the docket for books, or
yep.
you?
I've been got one in the works. It's just researching it, having more fun researching it than actually. I don't have time to be sitting down writing. It seems like, but we were wintering in Mexico, and that's a good time to get up in the morning and get the creative juices going. So yes, there's something on that coming up. Another Canadian history uh, project that I've been working on for a little while now. And I love going out and talking to the young authors conferences and give them some tips and say, who says Canadian history is boring? Don't write about the States, write about Canada. There's enough that happened right here that is exciting. And your parents and grandparents were probably involved. So
And maybe an American will read it and learn something about Canada.
you never know. Yeah.
Sent it to D. Trump.
Yes.
What about
I've done some
The
talks
not
down on the
51st state.
at the Mob Museum in Las Vegas about that, and people come up afterwards and they go, "I had no idea Canada was such full of bad people. That's very interesting." I went,
most
"Yeah,
of
well,
them came up from the States?
they learned everything from your guys."
What about you, Lynda? Any writing of books and that sort of thing, or you just narrating them, or what?
No, I was doing some writing for a while that was more like online news kind of stuff. So now I kind of feel like I'm looking for something. I feel like I'm kind of trying to keep my mind open. This is a weird thing, and it came to me in a way that I wasn't seeking out. I was grocery shopping a few months ago, and this woman came running up and was Lynda, and I was thinking, she's running toward me. Who is that? Who is that? And it was a photographer that had done headshots for me back at one of my media things. And what are you doing now? And I said, well, I'm doing a little media training and this and that. And I said, I'm looking for something a little bit more creative to keep the toes dipped in the pool. And she said, I'm going to send all your headshots to some talent agents. And it was like,
Mm.
whoa, 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 whoa. Not an actor. No, no. She said, oh, no, there's all kinds of commercial work and voice work. And I'm going to do that. And just you wait. And I kind of thought, oh my God. And she blew out the store. And I thought, okay, that's uncomfortable and weird. And by the time I walked home, I was like, and I had like 6 emails from talent agents saying, would love to get together with you and talk to you. Anyway, long story short,
Wow.
I did sign with this talent agent, and I've been doing auditions. They're all done self-tape now. And the thing that's good about it is just that it's the most ludicrous stuff that they want you to do in your kitchen with a big backdrop where you're pretending that an asteroid is about to hit Earth and you're a general in an army and stuff. And I'm just like, oh my God,
Hmm.
this is so humiliating.
But
But I feel like
interesting.
it's good for me to
Yeah.
knock down some of the, whatever analness about stuff. I had to do
Yeah.
one the other day
Inhibitions.
where I was pretending I was driving a self-driving car with kids in the back seat, and you're mimicking everything, and then you have to start conducting an orchestra, and it's for a commercial about self-driving cars. And I just thought, I'm getting over myself and thinking you are making a damn fool of yourself. And now I think this maybe there's a greater, plan in the universe just to chill yourself out and be open to other stuff. So far, nothing has come of it, but And there's interesting stuff. I got one the
Oh,
other day
yeah.
that I had to turn down where they wanted you to fly to Amsterdam and do some commercial, and it pays well if you actually get one. But they say it takes about
I'm not
100
that busy.
auditions to get one. Well, hey, I'll send my agent your way.
Yeah, I was looking forward to getting a Metamucil commercial, but that sounds much better. Great.
Pretending you're driving a car, a self-driving
Right.
car.
Yeah. And any commercial where you have to ask your doctor, just turn it down.
Oh, turn it
Right?
down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Too many of
So
those.
we'll see. You never know.
Yeah.
I did do one where it was more in my wheelhouse, where I was supposed to be a talk show host interviewing John Bonet's parents about the murder. And so I
Oh,
thought, okay, that felt more authentic to me. So
yeah.
I ended up doing that when I had to hire somebody to read the other lines with me and what have you. And I didn't read, these instructions are always very complex. And I had tons of stuff I had to memorize, 30 seconds, and I had all these other lines to read. And it wasn't until I went back through it again to look that they had already cast the actors for the roles of John Bonet's parents. And I was like, oh my God, it was Melissa McCarthy and Clive Owen. And they were
Oh,
already
wow.
shown. And I thought I would die. Like, that would be super fun. But I would be so like freaked out and intimidated if you
And
actually
stressed.
nail something, you know?
Yeah.
And they were shooting it in Calgary. And I thought I felt
Yeah.
good about that one. Didn't get it.
Hmm.
But anyway, so it's been interesting.
No
Sounds
kidding.
fun. I'm gonna go through a small list of names, and I just want you guys to say the first things that come to your head,
Oh,
because
that should be
we've
good.
we've already kind of covered Bill Matheson.
Yeah.
So let's go Nicola Crosby.
Oh,
Are you asking us just for a word, a thought?
Just the first thing that comes to your head, because I know you
just a
guys.
hoot to work with. She was just a firecracker, live wire, and it was always amazing to me when it was time for her spot and she wouldn't be there, and I wondered, what are you doing? And it was like, but then she'd come in and
Dying
just
of
nail it.
stress as she would
She was just
roar in
going
and plunk
a
down.
mile a minute. She was one of the funniest people. Yeah, she's hilarious. Yeah,
I remember her Sarah Palin imitation at
yeah, it
Halloween
was
that year.
awesome.
She
What
was
a
very good
hoot.
at it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Halloween was big at ITV.
yeah.
The
Uh,
whole set would be decorated and she was right into it.
that's great. Kevin Carius works next door to me now in the Sports 1440 studios at West Edmonton Mall. So Kevin Carius.
Linda,
Curious. He was like, what do you say about Curious? I
he's got
remember,
like
I believe it
five.
was with
He's
Curious.
got
Was it?
5 catchphrases.
Yeah.
You gotta be concerned. What's your level of concern? And I'd always go, I don't know, today about a 7, I guess. Okay, Big Stein, that's good.
Now,
I
was
never.
it, remember when they used to do the Boston Pizza Live sports night kind of
Oh,
thing?
yeah,
And the sports guys are sports guys. So they just basically put their feet up on the desk and watch a hockey game and jot a couple of notes, and that's their prep. And
ouch.
so off they went to go to Sportsnet, to the Boston Pizza. And
Yeah.
for the first time ever, the satellite went down. So we were just finishing the late news. And they said, oh, wait, stay in place because you might have to do
Oh, right.
Sportsnet.
Yes.
It was like, what? What do you mean? There's no scripts because sports guys don't write scripts. So we're like, what are
Right.
we doing? There was stuff in the teleprompter, and they were like, okay, just go and 3, 2, 1. And Gord and I are like, what? So we're like, well, good evening. Sorry. Well, we're going to have to take you through the beginning of sports night and hopefully they'll get the feedback. So sorry. Well, here we go. So we're reading stuff that's coming out the teleprompter that you've never
Just
seen before.
gobbledygook. Yeah.
Stuff like Ron Rimmer's stuff. Well, the Oilers are done like mama's pot roast or something. And we're looking at each
Yeah.
other like, oh
Or
my
I say, look
God.
at that. He put the
We
puck where
ended
grandma
up
keeps the
just
peanut butter.
killing ourselves laughing. And the switchboard bring lit up, and people said, this is the most entertaining sports night ever
Oh,
because it was so ridiculous.
yeah, embarrassing. But we did it.
Yeah.
That's funny. I've actually done the sports night with
Yes.
both Carius
I remember that.
and Darren Detition.
Yeah.
Did you have fun?
Yeah, it was. The thing was, I was nervous and I was jiggling my knee, and you could see that. And my head was jiggling. It looked like I had
And they were like,
something.
no.
I don't know what the problem was, but Dutch reads over during a commercial. He says, "Just so
Put his hand on
now."
your knee.
settle your your knee down a little bit. So, well, let's go there next. Darren Dutition, who sadly we lost not too long ago.
Oh yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, he was just a powerhouse, just a juggernaut. I mean, I remember if you went out in town and you wanted to get into a restaurant, you would just put him in front of you, use him like a battering ram, and just walk in wherever you wanted to go. The crowd would just part for him. He was like a number one celebrity in this town, and just a sweetheart to work with. He was just a ton of fun. I did a lot of golf tournaments with him. I'm a horrible golfer, but we would MC it at the end and stuff. And there were a lot of crazy stories that happened after those golf tournaments. But he was always just a real gentleman. I know he used to tease Lynda a lot and kind of
Well, he was young. We were all young. I mean, we were
yeah,
so young. But if you think now to the big stars that came out of that studio, and Dutition, probably the biggest of all the sports guys, even though there were a ton of really talented sports people that came out of ITV/Global, but he was a unique character along the lines of a Bill Matheson.
yeah.
Nobody else was like Darren Dutition. He was himself. He had joy with what he did. He loved his job and he was good at it. And it was just, I
Yeah,
don't know anyone that doesn't like Darren Dutition. Just a
no,
really,
exactly.
really talented, joyful person.
And what an amazing career. I mean, he came from a part of the world where my mom and dad came from, Tisdale, Saskatchewan. He came from Porcupine Plain. And he just took to it like a water does to duck sports casting. He went to the Western School of Broadcasting, which I remember I tried to get through too when I was 17, but music called. But he was in that too. So that he went from a little school like that and just skyrocketed up. And the guy, that's what he was meant to do. It was no question about it. He was made for sports, and he loved it with such a passionate sports cast he'd give.
When he was going through his health challenges and he was off the air for a long time and then he came back and he was quite puffed out with steroids and what have you.
Yeah,
And I remember seeing that first broadcast and he started to tear up because he was just so grateful to be
yeah.
back and grateful to be alive. And he just was a real person. There was no banana peel with Darren. He wasn't trying to get you, he wasn't trying to get one over on you. He just
No,
loved life, loved his job, and was just a good, decent human being.
and he never would. He never did things in a mean way. I remember we went ice fishing one morning. We were supposed to leave at 6 or 7 in the morning. He decided he wanted to leave at 4 in the morning. I was still asleep. He drove his little Jeep onto my lawn and just sat there. And it was like minus 30 out. Remember, my daughter got up and said, "There's somebody standing in our kitchen. I think it's Darren Dutition." And so I get out of bed, and sure enough, we just went fishing 2 hours later, just because he hadn't really been to sleep yet. So
Hmm.
that's when we decided to go up and had a wonderful time. And he was, that's just the way he was, kind of spur of the moment and just a heart of gold.
John Sexsmith.
Same.
Oh, pun daddy.
Hilarious. Yeah, Mr. Pun. He's got a pun for everything. So you got to love puns around John, but he's just a heart of gold too. He'd
Yeah.
take the shirt off his back for you. And a guy that's so passionate about sports that he gets really involved, really wrapped
Oh,
up
he
in
loves
any
his
kind of
son as a
sports.
hockey player, and he's
Yeah,
really risen through the ranks. I don't know if
yeah.
he's one step below NHL, but
Yeah,
boy, John just coached and a great dad and family man and a nice guy. Like John was a nice guy. Is
yeah.
a nice
And
guy.
we head out to concerts every now and then. We went out to one in November. John and I were just talking right now. We might go see another one. I don't want to say who it is because it's probably going to be sold out. But he enjoys music. He's a big music fan too.
John was the DJ at Jody and my wedding.
No
Oh,
way.
Yeah,
Wow.
he had his mobile DJ service, and I hired him to be the wedding DJ at my wedding.
nice.
I remember going to something. I think it might have been a global Christmas party, and Bob Layton was the DJ. I don't know. Do you remember this, Gord? And I, had a couple of drinks and was like, my one thing, I don't dance very much, but the one song that'll get me up is that song Shout. And it was like, oh, I'm going to go over there and get Bob Layton to play that song. And he was so mad.
Yeah,
No. And he was like all pissed off and everything. I was like, well, all right then. Because DJs are persnickety kind of people. It's like, you don't tell me what to do. I'm reading the crowd. I'm going to do what I want to do. And I was like, all right then. Didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
Oh, I love Bob Layton. Same thing at Jackie's wedding. Jacqueline Clark, when she got married, I borrowed a hot rod car, and we took her and her dad to the old Pioneer cabin, and there's Bob Layton, and he's such a talented DJ. He had everything, all the bells and whistles, state of the art. And it was about halfway through, and I did the same thing. I said, what would really get this crowd going is Little Thunderstruck by AC/DC. And without missing a beat, he goes, Gord, I'm the professional. I'll tell you when I'm going to play Thunderstruck, and it is not right now.
Right then. Yeah. Okay, Bob.
Yeah,
So-
plenty of things you remember.
Yeah.
So Shout by the Isley Brothers is your jam, Lynda? Did you ever sing it with Gord and his band while he was up playing?
No, never did even ever attempt to sing backup. I did get up once at a media New Year's Eve event
Played tambourine.
somewhere. I can't remember where we were. And we got up and sang, and it was like really, really bad. But we had had a lot to drink. In fact, when we left, we cheated the server by mistake. And I got home and I thought, oh no, we didn't leave enough of a tip. And there'd been like 15 of us or something, all media people. And they probably thought, you cheap bastards. And I couldn't sleep all night thinking, oh my God, I feel so terrible. And I drove there the next morning. And like, here's $100, and I'm so sorry. And we just screwed that up somehow. But
that's
yeah,
funny.
no.
You know what I do in that situation, and we've all been. I mean, over the years, we've seen each other at media things, and we get invited to this, that, the other thing. The first thing I do when I walk in, I go up to the bar and I drop $20 into the jar or whatever, and I say, "This is a room full of radio and TV people. You're likely never to see a tip from any of them, but I wanted to make sure that I did this first because I will forget.
Yeah.
So
Smart.
here's $20. Have a great night, and thanks for the invite."
And you don't have to go back the next morning. That's good thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, with $100.
I think it's less
Yeah.
that media people are cheap and more that media people drink a lot and forget that they didn't tip. Or maybe they're cheap. Who knows?
Oh, my God. Well, now I want to start with my questions that I have. I'm kidding.
Because we had
How
let
long
you
has this?
talk for
How
the
long has
last
this
hour.
been? Yeah, this is like we're into it for 3 hours now, I think.
Yeah.
I had no idea that I was going to be able to say hello, and it was like starting a lawnmower or a leaf blower. The two of you went off like nobody's
Sorry.
business. It has been an absolute pleasure to be sitting here.
Thank you.
watching
It
the
was
two of you
fun.
reminisce.
Pleasure is ours.
I will let you get back to your day, and thank you very much for being here. Because I have to go because I have to write a sternly worded letter to Lynda Steele about the improper use of her jewelry today.
Oh, right.
Why?
Yeah.
What? What?
That goes back to my earring quote. When I said that we used to get criticized for earrings and ties, and now it's other things. If you need any ties, Terry, let me know. I still have 382 of them hanging upstairs. Deb's getting a little anxious to get rid of them. I don't know what to do. Make a rug out of them, I think.
I bet you do.
Yeah.
And Lynda, that's a callback, is what we call that in the radio
Thank you.
biz.
Because I'm too
Callback.
old to remember. That was like 12 minutes ago. I can't remember the reference.
That's for sure. Well, it's great to see you. Love you both, and continued happiness with your retirement and semi-retirement.
Let's stay in touch.
Absolutely.
Let's do a podcast together. We'll call it Lynda and Gord Don't Let Terry Talk or something. Hey,
Yeah,
that could
that's
be.
good. And he can just sit there in the corner in a chair in the dark. That would be good.
Weigh in every 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, have one question 45 minutes in, and then, hey, it might be, it's different. It's never been
See?
done.
We could do an entire podcast without any questions, just rambling, talking.
And
No
go.
prep.
Yeah,
We'll call it Just Press Record.
right.
Exactly. Love it.
It'll work. Number one with a bullet.
Reluctantly.
This podcast, reluctantly sponsored by homegirls.ca, a top producing team at Reminisce Professionals. Also by Northern Alberta Heating, with work in and out of Edmonton and hiring bonuses for experienced candidates. Email your resume to tim@northernheating.ca.
Reluctantly.